Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Holy in Between. I am Janiece, your host, Ifa Soto. Today, I have a special guest with me. So before we get into my girl, today's episode is a part of our segment, Underworld Mobbin', the art of dying. Let that marinate for a bit. That's going to kind of kickstart this segment of the holy in between in which we kind of get into the art of dying. People don't talk about it, which I believe stunts us from living. And the more we talk about it, the less we make it taboo, the more that we can just integrate our dead and this very real part of life. I truly believe the more we will live in this world, and things will just get a little bit more exciting. We have much more to live for and much more to plan for, because planning is important. So without further ado, I have my girl Keyanna from the Dark Sugar podcast here with me today. If you're not new to the show, so if you've watched previous episodes, you've seen her face before. So I'm gonna let her introduce herself because becoming one of my favorite people. Yes.
Favorite. Well, no, same with you. My name's Keyanna. I am the host of Dark Sugar Podcast. I am a writer, an educator, a mental health advocate, and I'm just honored to be a part of this segment and to deep dive with you into this subject that is often like pretty taboo, especially in Western culture. I think it's really important that you're bringing this to the forefront. It's amazing.
Yes. And so all of this pretty much started from when I was featured on your podcast, and there was a question you had asked. But basically, we were talking about suicidal ideation and how that kind of pushed, me into this world of like, it's all or nothing at this point. Like coming home to myself, which that was the podcast episode, what kind of jump started that? And it was like, well, hell, if it's this or nothing, because I can't commit suicide because that's a sin. I can't off like there's no other option. We here. So I'm gonna live a good life and I'm gonna live it authentically. And so I was like, that kind of led us to talking more about, well, let's continue on this conversation a bit. The first question, and we just go and pop the lid open. What was your relationship with death growing up? Yes.
Well, I was thinking about this question for a few days, and I
Mm-hmm.
noticed that, and I don't want to speak for all Black people, but death in my family, it was very comfortable. Very, very comfortable. It was an open thing that we talked about. It's really funny because my family's super Christian Baptist, but yet we
Mm-hmm.
do like a lot of indigenous African shit. So I'm just like, okay, but I come from a big family. I think you do too. You said your grandma's one of 14 or
16.
something.
Mhm.
16, goddamn. Yeah, and my mom's one of 14.
Oh
So I
wow.
have tons of cousins, and unfortunately sometimes like coming from a big family, like someone passes away like once a year. Like that's just how it is. So I grew
Yeah.
up going to funerals. I grew up with ghost stories. I grew up seeing dead bodies. That was very normal for me. And I had a friend maybe like a year ago. She was like, I went to my uncle's funeral and she's like, it was my first time seeing a dead body. And I was like,
Wow.
for real? But I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. But I was like, for real? This was your first time? And especially with um a lot of like especially like Catholic funerals, most of them the casket is closed. Like you don't see it. And so, but with my family, we're up in there, who dressed them, who did their makeup. Well, that's not
Yeah.
right. Let's fix this. Let's touch this. Like super comfortable to the point where I didn't even know that talking about death was taboo. I thought everybody did. I thought everybody believed in ghosts. I didn't know some people didn't because my family, we have ghost stories being passed down. Like I just thought,
Really?
oh, hell yeah. Yeah, it's super, very comfortable.
Wait, okay, pause. Because I definitely want to validate that no, it is not a norm, especially within the Black community. I'm speaking for my family. We also dealt with, on my mother's side, just a lot of death growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And then my brother passed, and then my best friend's mom passed in high school. It
Mm-hmm.
was like back to back to back for me, at least growing up.
Hmm.
And we didn't talk about it. It was just like,
Really?
oh, Collins, we got him in the ground, we did it. Back to the, and my grandparents, we would go to the cemetery a lot, and it would become ritual for us, but that was a very specific bubble that we were in. Like,
Mhm.
My parents didn't want to go to the cemetery. My dad would come with me when I would
Uh-huh.
ask him to, you know. My mom was like, I gotta focus on the living, babe. That makes
Yeah.
And on my dad's side, I don't remember going to see the cemetery with anybody over there. And so maybe in like 2020, when everybody was inside, I held like a memorial for my brother. I'm like, it's the 10th year anniversary. Like, let's hop on Zoom. No one has ever done that in my family to like honor people and talk about like, hey, I really miss this person. He was actually really incredible.
Mhm.
So it's interesting to hear like you're not the first person in your family to like start this trend that it's been handed down. So I want to hear about a ghost story. I'm not,
Well, yeah, like
what's the
okay, so for instance,
commonalities?
my I think it was my mom's grandmother or grandfather. Like there's this story that my mom tells me all the time that when I was 2 years old, we were in our little apartment in Whittier, California together, and it was
Okay.
kind of late at night, and I made this crazy ass noise that was like it kind of sounded like a burp, but it was like a crazy ass noise. And then like 5 minutes later, my mom got the call that her grandfather died.
Holy
And she
shit.
and she and she told her mom, and she was like, "Oh, the spirit was passing through her. Like, it's okay. The spirit was just." And I was like, "What?" And then there's another story, just normal, like, "Oh, that's just the spirit passing through, child. Like, no worries." And I'm like, "Huh?" And then there's
Spooky.
another story of my grandparents, my mom's parents. They split up when they were younger. My grandma went to her mom's house, and so my grandma's younger sisters were there. And hold on, I'm trying to tell the story right. There was a knock at the door. My great grandfather opened the door. They saw a man walking across the street, and when he hit the end of the street, he disappeared. That's what they said. He just disappeared. And then a voice was coming out of my great aunt, and it was kind of telling my grandma to go back with my grandpa. And the dress that my great aunt was wearing, we still have it. And when we
Wow.
have family gatherings, they'll pull it out and tell the story. Like we still have the dress that she was wearing when this happened.
Not the whole, when did this happen?
It happened when my grandmother was very young, so it must have been the 1960s, 70s, and they
I
still have the
love
dress.
this. This is ancestor veneration, like 101.
Yeah, and
Let's
I
pull out
so
Auntie. Let's bring her
I
to
just
the
thought
table.
so when people are like, "Yeah, I don't believe in ghosts," I'm like, "Oh, this is an option?" I was like, "Yeah."
Wait.
It's just so normal.
Girl, wait. Okay, no, but I love that. I love that too because I know that you are also coming into just elevation, period, with your path. I believe you are a whole priestess of whatever you soon to claim, with whatever path you soon to claim. You carry a lot of energy with you. So to know that this is the background and this is the lineage that you come from, I'm like, oh, duh, she's not new to this. Duh,
So
she's been prepared.
so normal. And like, oh, I was gonna say something so weird. I'm just gonna say it. I love
Yeah.
funerals. Like
Mm-hmm.
I like them. I like the whole ceremony process of the wake, the funeral, and then we're at the cemetery, and then there's a repast, and people are bringing out the photo albums, and even just seeing the dead body for the first time, I would just go up and like stare, like, wow. I don't know. It was just I always
Interesting.
had this fascination. I'll throw another weird thing out there that I do.
Isn't that weird? We don't label. It is what you do. Spit
I okay, wait. I'm like preparing to say it.
it out.
When
Yeah.
celebrities die, I'm fascinated with looking at the autopsy report.
But again, this does not surprise me. So
Like
what does that what does that entail? Walk me through it, looking at an autopsy.
I will just type it in on
Mhm.
Google and type in so and so autopsy report, and I'm so fascinated with like what was in their system, how their body appeared, like the time frame, had they eaten, like
So the autopsy report, I've never looked at one. So it'll list through basically all the MO of
it will list everything. It'll list like
Mhm.
all the if the person had tattoos, like any birthmarks, it'll talk about the brain and like how it looked and the heart and if it was enlarged or not or this or that and if they died of an overdose, the amount of drugs and which drugs contributed to the
I see it coming out. Yes. There it is. Hi. So, one of the parts that we talked about as well was become a death doula. And so I know that topic or the title is not new to me. And I like to call myself just an advocate for death because
Yeah.
we don't talk about it enough. We don't, and without talking about it, as I've said before, we miss out on so much of life. So when you were telling me some of your experiences, specifically with your neighbor, I believe, I was like, girl, you are a whole death doula. And yes, there are certifications, there are programs that people go through to learn certain things. But with more of my research, I've found like if you're comfortable with death and you don't mind, I don't, carrying the burden is not the right word. If you don't mind being in community and helping those through this process, and on both ends, so both the dead, because I don't do guts, y'all. I don't do body fluids. But with the family and the grieving and the processes that go into place around dying, like, oh yeah, no, emotion to the side. Let's get it. Let's make sure our processes are in place. Versus you, it sounds like you don't mind the body fluids and the actual like dying. So if you want to tell me more about that experience, yeah, with your neighbor, if you don't mind sharing.
It depends because I always say like I could never be a nurse because of the fluid. It depends on what fluid. Anyway, but with so it was actually my mentor, her neighbor,
That's what it was.
and it
Okay.
and it was a beautiful like it was a moment where because teachers don't work over the summer. So I was
Yeah.
just like, what am I gonna do for work over the summer? This is trash. And I literally prayed and I just gave it to the universe. I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do this summer. Fuck it. I'll be okay either way. Bye. I'm releasing this. 10 minutes later, she calls me and she's like,
Mm.
are you working over the summer? And I'm like,
What?
no. And then she's like, hold on. And then she hangs up. And I'm like, hello? Like, what's going on? And then she calls back and she's like, would you mind doing hospice work and helping me with my neighbor? Because I've had hospice training in the past in high school, like that I volunteered at hospice. And I was like, sure. And her neighbor, she was in her 60s. She had, oh, I can't remember what it was called, but it was brain cancer.
Okay.
And she was in a wheelchair. The right side of her body was paralyzed. And she had I started to care for her in June and she passed in October.
Wow.
And it was funny because even though she couldn't really talk, my mentor was like, she really likes you. And I was like, how
How
do
you know
you know
that?
that? She can't talk, but I could tell she really trusted me. She would give me money. She started to do this thing where she would take all the money that she hid in her house and gave it to me to put in her ATM and I put
Wow.
in her bank. And I was like, oh my God, okay, you really trust me. But I was extremely comfortable with her. It was like no problem. Like it was no problem. And I started reading her this book. It's called The Afterlife of Billy Fingers. Have you heard of
Okay.
it?
Mm-mm.
And it's literally about this woman, her brother, I was gonna say disappeared, died. He died, and she was getting revelation from him about what part of the universe he was in, what was happening to him, da da da
Mm.
da da. And she was writing down all the revelation, and I would read it. Her name's Miss April to Miss April. And it was a really beautiful process because there were some days where she would just cry
Mm.
and she would just be really frustrated and she would just throw things and she'd just be like, what the fuck? And I remember one time I read her a chapter of the book and I was like, Miss April, doesn't that make you feel better? And she was just like, no. Okay, no problem. No problem. But towards the end, um, when she became unconscious and
Yeah.
she couldn't talk anymore, I had no problem getting some salve and rubbing her body down, and I would talk to her, Miss April, I don't want you crusty, so I'm gonna rub you down, or I would wiping her mouth or just massaging her or
Yeah.
or something. And there were a couple times when I would come in the house, "Hi, Miss April," and she would go, "Huh," like she knew I was there. And towards the end, like the last week, I was there every day, every day, every day. And then I got sick and I said, "I'm not coming tonight." And then that's when she passed.
Wow.
And I was like, "Did you do that on purpose?" And I'm actually glad because I was like, "I'm ready. I'm ready to see someone pass away." But really, I was not. I actually wasn't.
Mhm.
But just to be there from that moment to the end, I'm not gonna lie to you, it was exciting to
Yeah,
know that she would finally be free and finally let go. She was so restricted. You can't fucking talk. You can't
yeah,
fucking move. And I could feel that heavy weight on her. And, I saw her get her last rites. Like, it was just beautiful, yo. It really
I
was.
love that. I thank you for sharing, first of all.
Yeah.
Is something there?
No, I want to show you something. This is calling me.
Yeah.
Hold on. Hold on. I want to show you something. You're like, what is it? Okay. So she actually gave me my first deck of tarot cards. I don't know if you
Ooh.
could see.
Oh, yes. Wait, I think you're telling me about this. Yes.
Yeah, so this is the deck she gave me, and it's crazy because one day she was known to be stingy.
Mm-hmm.
She was known to be stingy and not really frugal with her money. And one
Mm-hmm.
day I came in and she was like, "Shaka." And I was like, "Girl, I love Shaka Khan. Like, you want me to play you some Shaka Khan? Like, I love Shaka Khan." And then she typed in her phone, "chakra." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I know about chakra." So I'm just going on, and she's pointing over there. And I get this. I'm like, "Oh, chakra." And she's like, "For you." And the crazy thing was that day, and maybe the day before, I'm on Amazon typing in tarot cards, trying to
Yeah.
plan when to buy some. So
We're gifted.
that was just crazy to
So have
me.
you used them?
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
I
no,
was
we
gonna say,
vibe.
like, so where we at?
No, we're vibing. This is my favorite. I have another deck, but this one is my favorite. It really speaks to me, and I feel like we have a relationship. Yeah.
Mm. So knowing that you went through this whole process, do you think, I mean, you obviously have a fascination and comfortability that I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people, this is new, which I'm so glad that we're talking about it, that you're giving me permission to share this because yeah, we need more of this. So what future? Like, do you want to do more of this? Like, if you had to dream on camera and out loud about doing more, what would that look like?
I definitely have thought about it, and I do see myself, I was gonna say turning your gifts into a business.
And we don't even have to go that far.
Okay,
Like,
okay. But
yeah.
I because I was like, wait, no, but I do see myself like coming into people's homes,
Mm-hmm.
especially people that don't have families. Miss April did not have a close family. She was
Okay.
estranged from her whole family, so no one was there. And so I can really see myself, especially for people who don't have don't have close relatives, just guiding them through it and giving them that comfort, making them feel safe, making them feel like this isn't awkward. Because even like we would have, I remember my mentor's husband, we were both at Miss April's house and he would not come in because at this point she's in the living room and he's like, "Do you guys want anything to eat?" And she's like, "Come in the house." He's like, "You have a dying lady like in your living room." And I was like, "Oh, oh yeah, we do." Like it didn't even occur to me. So I feel like I could even help other people who are not comfortable. I could be that middleman for other people because I'm not trying to force you to come in and look at her. Like it's tough, but I could totally see myself doing that. Yeah.
Yes. And in my research for death doulas, a lot of it is donation based. As
Oh.
well as, because like you said, comforting those without family, that's a whole sector within itself. There's a lot of different parts to being a death doula. And
Mhm.
so being able to comfort those without family and those who haven't really planned for dying, because again, dying is expensive. It's so expensive. And that's before you get to the funeral planning with the caskets and the ceremonies and da 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 da. It's like the medical bills, the getting your estate planning together, getting attorneys, that's super expensive. So to now have this extra cost of bringing someone in to help guide that process,
Yeah.
And so there are people like you who are built for this and don't mind, hey, you don't have to pay me. And I love that you said kind of guiding people through it because I think this is going to be a new skill and something new that can be introduced to certain parts of our community because we're used to just let's get through it. Let's get everything done, da, 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 da. And it's like having someone like you to be like, pause. Are people comfortable? Are we talking? Are we emoting? You know, people express grief differently. You got people laughing and wanting to kiki versus people who can't come in the home and see. So what you're doing is important. And I'm not saying it needs to be a business, but I definitely love it as a community offering and something that, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, a community offering. Because I was like, I don't want people to pay me, but then I'm like, you
yeah,
could
no.
pay me. I was like, huh? No, you said donation based. Yeah, I could really see it. I'm so comfortable with it, girl. It's not even
Yeah.
funny.
But it's
It's not even
beautiful.
funny.
And so I guess this like blows all of our questions out the water to know that your family, again, you're like so true to this, that you've been being prepared for this. I feel like that little snippet you gave us in the beginning. Now that I know, because literally one of the questions were like, where's your comfort level with death now? Like, where are we at with it? So then
I
let's jump to the juicy part. When we talk about dying, and again, making people comfortable with the idea of it and tasting it in our mouths. There's a song, Janae goes like Party for Me, and I absolutely love it. We know Janae Aiko to be the woo-woo spiritual fairy, but
mm,
she's also from like
very
LA and be walking with like corrupt and current, like, she's not
yes. Yeah.
one
Yeah,
to
yeah.
play with. So to do a whole song around, nah, y'all need to celebrate if and when I passed, and knowing her very vocal, I don't want to say struggle experience with the drugs, with her brother. I think believe it was her brother passing, and
Mhm.
she wrote a poetry book, Two Fish. I have that book.
I gotta read it. I haven't read it.
Yes. Oh, is it at home? I think it's at home. I could send it to you. Yeah, I love a good book exchange. Listen, she, yeah, talks a lot about just like, I don't want to be here. And so I can definitely, as an egg bay child, who's had a lot of my favorite people pass, like definitely struggling with that, like, I don't want to be here. But it's like, you're not brave enough to do that. So getting to the responsible part of that, of actual planning, because if you have an asset, you should be estate planning. If you have a
Mm-hmm.
car that you're not making payments on, this is not to you but to like everyone, you
Hmm.
know you should
Hmm.
have some documentation. If something happens to me, what happens to this car? If you have a house, if you have jewelry, if you have anything, there should be documentation of, if this happens, this is what to do with it. Because again, just like marriage and contracts, if you don't, it will default to the state,
Yeah.
and this is what creates chaos that
Mm.
compounds on emotions when people are dying. So, going off the theme of the song, how do you want to die? Like, how do you want to go out? How do you want to be celebrated? How do you want us to kind of like, in your lineage and those who come after you, how do you want to be reverend?
So wait, when you say how do I want to die, are you talking about after or literally how do I want to go out? Like to die?
Wait, that just the second one, because I don't think we really have much say on, do you know how you're gonna die? I mean, I also don't want to.
Some like strong suggestion.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Before we get into that, that was definitely not where the question was going. I meant once you have passed, how do you want to be
Okay,
memorialized?
okay. Oh,
But
okay, okay.
knowing that you are connected in ways, tell me, how have you these strong suggestions? Yeah.
I just don't want to see it coming.
Okay.
Whatever it is, I just want it to be immediately. Even if it is slow, I just want to be unconscious. If I'm sick, please let me be unconscious. If I'm being hit by a car, let it be immediately and let me not be like, you know what that's my only suggestion to the universe. I don't want to see it.
Hmm.
Let it blindside me. I don't want to my last moments have it in my face. That's my only
Yeah.
suggestion. She's like, girl, no. But I used to care like whether I'm cremated or buried. Now I don't care about that. I would just like for the people closest to me to be able to see me, whether that's awake or something. I would just like my body to be presented to my family. I would like my birthday celebrated. I would like people to read my writing. I would
Mm,
like these are my favorite things to be celebrated and valued. If you want to get a tattoo of my name, like go for it. Like
you said line it up.
just
Everybody's gonna
don't,
be getting
yeah,
tatted.
no, just don't forget me because I feel like, especially having a big family, a black family that's really close to slavery, because my grandparents were sharecroppers and my grandma was literally born on a plantation. There's a lot
Wow.
of, oh yeah, we don't know who that is, or like we don't know what their last name is, or we don't even know what their name was, or we don't know. And so I would just like to be known and I would like for my name to be said. Like, don't be scared to say my name. Don't be scared to bring me up. Let me be somebody that you can talk about.
Yeah. I love, especially as you're making this pivot into really leaning in as a writer. I remember you telling me stories about, being in the classrooms and it's like you're just writing and it's just coming out and it seems to come so naturally to you. I'm really excited for the books, the poetry books, the open mics, all the things that you continue to do with this writing. So to say, yeah, read my work. How do you want to be called at the altar? Because you said, with your great aunt, they pull out the dress, right? So when we come to the altar for you, is there certain snacks? Is there certain drinks, libations that you would like?
I don't know, even though I'm not particularly a sweet candy person, it just came
Mhm.
to me sweet, like fruit,
Mm.
soda. I don't know why that just like came to me. I would like sweets. I would like to, I don't got teeth now. I could pick out fuck cavities. Like let's just like go in. Like I don't know. I want sweet things. That's how
What do
I
you eat sweet? That's sweet now. Like what? If you had to put a name to some of this. Oh, you said Skittles?
like Skittles, yeah.
Okay. Sour or just the tropical ones with it was like
Regular. The
tropical.
red
Okay.
package, regular, yeah.
Anything else?
I love ginger ale. Like I have an auntie right now that's on my altar and she will add like I'll do water. And then one day she was like, put a lemon in it. And I was like, okay. And she's like, and some sugar. And I'm like, do you want lemonade? What's happening? I was like, are you asking for lemonade? And when I asked my mom, and she was like, oh yeah, she loved lemonade. And
Oh wow.
I was like, oh, okay. She was like, and lemon and some sugar. And I was like, what the fuck? I love ginger ale. My grandma loves Coke. She loves a soda. And so ginger ale, baby, and tea. I love
Okay.
tea. Yeah.
What kind of tea?
Bum, 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 bum. I like Earl Grey. I like green tea. I like, oh my God, what is that one? It's a South
Mhm.
African tea. Rooibos.
Okay. So do you see how this process of talking about death and how do you want to die? How do you want to be memorialized? The whole nine. Do you see how this process just made you like fine tune? This is what I like. This bring this specifically to the altar. Like your aunt
Mm.
is known as I love lemonade. It adds context to the canon of like, no, I'm not just Janiece. I'm Janiece and I love buttercream, vanilla cake, and I love bourbon and pretty much any dark, whiskey or whatever, and some tacos. Bring some tacos to the altar.
Yo, I didn't even think
Taco
food.
store.
Yeah.
And so I think that adds more verbiage to who we are and how we live. Because again, when we talk about getting into ourselves and our bodies and really understanding who we are, so when we come upon other forces who try to take away our names, who try to take away our stories, it's like, nah, you can't write me out of history because I'm such a dynamic and multifaceted person with likes and dislikes.
The reclaiming of our space and our name and who we are. I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I rock with that. Wow. Okay.
I'm like, what's turning over there?
I don't know. I just feel something happening. Ooh. I don't know. I feel a grounding happening right now as we're talking about this. Literally,
Mm-hmm.
my feet are tingling. I feel just a grounding. I am here. I'm supposed to be here. You can't make me feel like I'm not supposed to be here. That's
Yeah.
what's, yeah, that's what's coming.
Well, good, because so much goodness is coming after this. Like again, this is the importance of talking about death, of ancestor veneration.
Right. Oh
Cry, go ahead. This is a full tears
my
docu-series.
gosh. That was just beautiful how you established that, what you just said just now. Yeah, no, I can feel it like vibrating. Whew, I feel a praise dance coming on. I'll do it later. Woo.
Not a shout, yes.
The only time I wanted to do a praise dance is when I'm doing woo-woo shit in church. I'm just there like I'm not moving, but
Come on, wait, that's a whole nother section. We're not going to talk about the facading of spirit within churches. What's the next question? Kind of to wrap it up and honor your time. We
yeah.
kind of talked about how you're also getting more into your ancestry and just, learning about who you come from, as well as how, like, where they come from. The islands, is it the continent? Is it, where exactly are my people from? I feel like that sparked in me. It made me remember this book, These Ghosts Are Family by Maisie Card or Carr, one of my favorite books. It is talking a lot about the interconnectedness of ancestry within the Jamaican culture. It really was my first introduction into nine nights and just Jamaican folklore around dying and the ritual around it. And it was really cool. So
Mm.
knowing that you have both woo-woo-ness and the traditional, religion, are there any traditions and things that have came before you that you're like, oh yeah, no, we're keeping this. My ancestors gave it to me, my parents gave it to me, the church and who I grew up with, and that feels good, so I'm gonna keep that. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Well, two things. One thing is, and I know a lot of other people do this, so it's not like exclusive to my family, but like getting limos for the funeral, like that was like the biggest thing. It's like we have to have a limo, and it almost feels like a production in the
Yeah.
most like honorable sense. It really does feel like a production. And
The cops like stopping you through the city, be like, let them go by.
I love that. I love that shit. I love that. And also just being buried. My grandparents were sharecroppers.
Mhm.
Both of them were born on a plantation like very close together in Hearn, Texas. And I didn't even understand this until recently, but where everyone's like traditionally buried is a segregated cemetery. I didn't even know it
Wow.
was a segregated cemetery, but it's like I have about 20 something, maybe more family members buried at this cemetery. And every time we go, my uncles get out their guns and do a couple rounds, and it's like a really big deal. I also come from a military family. And so just thinking the importance of where you're being buried, because I guess recently I'm kind of like, I don't care. But at the same time, I'm like, well, should I care? Because this is like a tradition. Yeah, I didn't even know it was segregated. But once I found that out, I was like, oh, this means a lot. Like you're telling me, like slaves were probably buried there. Like this is insane. You're telling me there are only black people here? Like it just made
Yeah.
it that much more important. So I have been thinking about it a little more intentionally, but limo. And yeah, I have been considering where.
Because that's in Arizona or here back in California?
It's in Texas.
In Texas, okay.
We're in Texas, yeah.
Is Texas calling your name?
Yes and no. Like I definitely want to take a trip there just
Mm-hmm.
for the historical
Yeah.
factor because there's so much history there. But I don't know if I want to live there or even be buried there because sometimes I'm like, this is maybe for my aunts and uncles and the older generation. I feel kind of, even though I'm related, sometimes I feel weird just stepping in. Like my plot's right here. Like, I don't know. But I definitely need to take a trip and do more historical
Yeah. Just to kind of
work.
understand the energy and
Yeah.
I love
What
that.
about you?
What do I want to take from the tradition?
Mhm.
No, I don't know, but I know one thing that will not be taken from the tradition. Wow, it came on strong when you asked that. I was
Good.
not expecting to answer it, but in my gut, I absolutely,
Uh-huh.
positively loathe the song Going Up Yonder. I want to cry just thinking about it now.
Yeah.
Like, wow, like this is the type of
Oh my
reaction that
gosh.
it like causes in my body. And it's so
Yeah.
interesting because again, having gone to so many funerals over my life, and
Yeah.
that is like the Black dying national anthem at a funeral.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's wild because I truly feel like it's a vibration of the song
Mhm.
that's in my body. Wow, I wasn't expecting to cry or even talk about this song, but that song is such a portal because it's usually the last song that's played at a funeral. And it's usually
Yeah,
when the pallbearers come and grab the casket, right? To take it
yeah,
back to the hearse and so we could go to the cemetery. And it's
yeah.
just like, wait, what do you mean this is the last time I get to see you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And my whole life, about to be 30 years old. I just knew I didn't like that song.
Right.
I never articulated why. I don't think I've ever had space to like, why don't I like this song? But that makes a lot of
Oh,
sense why I would not like it.
no, I really validate that. Thank you for answering. I didn't mean to flip it on you so
No,
harshly.
yeah, no, I love it. I love conversation. Wow, I guess I needed that too.
Hmm. No, but that does make sense. And
And
it's
it's so
almost like
interesting.
you know it the song's gonna come.
Because
And so it's
they're
like,
gonna play it.
yeah, they're gonna play it and it ooh, yeah. Ooh, I feel that.
And so it was so weird because it was just like, oh, I hate this song. I guess the importance too of if I'm just gonna, articulate more on like what is happening in my body,
Yeah.
to know within the Black culture that I grew up in, like there was no ancestor veneration. They're in the ground and they're dead, they're absent with the body, present with the Lord. But again, I love that like when you start actually asking questions and you're like, okay, but if time is linear in their world, they're in the ground. So okay, there's no consciousness. They're resting, right? But then y'all are also having dreams and talking to dead spirits and they're coming back and you can feel or they come back as an ancestor and the baby is acting real grown and like has a very sweet tooth particular to the auntie who just passed away. And oh, that baby done been here before, but you don't believe in reincarnation anyways.
Right.
um,
Right.
so yeah,
Yeah.
I believe, before I came into the traditions that I'm in now that honor ancestor veneration, like it probably was a hard stop for baby Janiece, who was just like, dang, like I don't get to see you again. And
Right.
even though I'm comfortable with death now, growing up, like with all the funerals, I talk about how like, yeah, no, there was a lot of tragic death in my family. And so one of them in particular, I remember like my aunt holding me at the back of the church while my uncle had passed and my grandmother like wailing, earth-shattering wails. And I remember covering my ears and my aunt was just like rocking me. And we're in the back of the church, so we're not even up front with my family. And so I think this is also why I'm really passionate because
Uh-huh.
I make it very clear that like these aren't just my tears. These aren't just my like
Mhm.
offerings of veneration. They're generations worth of people who had to just keep going and didn't have capacity to stop and honor where we come from out of survival, out of
Mhm.
necessity.
Mhm.
So I just really want to thank you for your time because
Of
for
course.
you to add different perspective of like, now my family, we do this. And my mom is an advocate for me, like being a channel for those who are crossing over. And I'm just really glad to know that you were supported in your spiritual gifts and that this is just the beginning. Really
Yes.
excited for you.
And thank you for validating me. And you were the one that I was always interested in family history, but you were always the one that were like, where you come from, who are your people? But and I was like, oh, I really need to deep dive and like this is real. So I still have these moments where I'm like, this is real. This is real. My aunt's really asking for lemonade. Janiece is really like feeding me and talking to me about this. And then you're so involved in your spiritual practice. I'm like, wait, this is real. This is real. Like I still have those moments. So for you to have this space and to be so vulnerable yourself and for us to connect like this, it's everything. It really is.
Oh my gosh. And this isn't the end. I'm like, I have a feeling that we have so much more to discuss and get
Mm.
into. Like, use a whole ass scholar. I love when we start opening wormholes and you're like, oh, I gotta go research this. And I'm like, my girl, that's my language.
I research
So
every time we talk. I'm like,
listen, because coming into community with like other it's one thing to be woo-woo and we know what's on the internets now, but what's
yeah.
real, what's fake, what has the mask of Instagram curatedness, you know? So to talk to somebody that you know that is a real, is a person who deals with life, and we're like, wait, hi, hello, wait, let's get to this. So with that being said, more to come. I'm so grateful for this space, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Holy In Between. Oh, and go follow Keyanna on all of the platforms, the Dark Sugar Podcast, the writing. I feel like more is coming for the writing. I feel like it's separating from the dark. Anyway,
Feel
I'm
it?
gonna stop.
You feel it? I feel
I'm gonna
it.
stop
No,
right
thank
here.
you.